Fresh hope for Jet Airways, with lenders finally approving an offer made by the Calrock Jalan Consortium. Insolvency professional Ashish Chacharia, who steered the resolution process, says the airline can fly again within 6 months under new owners. US-based distress asset fund Oaktree Capital offers to buy DHFL's entire book for a total of 28,000 crore rupees. It is one of the 4 suitors who have submitted bids for the debt-ridden company. Google's global team to meet Indian app developers on the billing policy issue this week. Sources say Google has reached out to Indian startups to participate in talks. Online retailers see brisk demand as the annual festive sales kick off, with a surge in participation from Tier 2 and 3 cities. Amazon sees 91% customer addition from these pockets in the first 48 hours of sales. Myntra says 50% of revenue has come from Tier 2 and 3 cities.
Yes, I have not closed the option to come up with one more stance.
Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman says the government has not closed to the option of more economic stimulus. Also says the new divestment policy, which is up for the Cabinet's nod, will mark a big shift in government strategy. India's exports to China rise 27% between April to August despite the ongoing border tussle. China also accounting for 18% of India's imports this year compared to nearly 14% last year. China's economy recovers further from the coronavirus and grows 4.9% in the third quarter of 2020. The surge pushes growth for the first 3 quarters of the year to 0.7%. Private equity firm Blackstone agrees to buy 100% stake in L&T mutual fund for 3,200 crore rupees, and an announcement is likely soon. Sources say SEBI nod will be crucial for this first instance of a foreign investor buying out an Indian mutual fund business. A shot in the arm for Adani Enterprises in the Trivandrum airport case. Kerala High Court dismisses the state government's petition versus the privatization of the airport. India's active COVID-19 cases fall for the 16th day in a row and slip to 7.7 lakh, the lowest level in almost a month and a half. Deaths increased by 579, the lowest single-day rise in 3 months. Total tests fall to 8.6 lakh. With just 15 days to go for the US elections, Democrat presidential nominee Joe Biden continues to maintain his strong lead over President Donald Trump. Polling averages by Real Clear Politics put Biden 9 percentage points ahead in the race. Good evening and thank you for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Parikshit Luthra. The big story this evening, with lenders finally approving the resolution offer made by the Calrock Murarilal Jalan Consortium for Jet Airways, there's hope in the air for the troubled airline. The consortium has proposed to relaunch Jet Airways as a full-service carrier. Banking sources, however, tell us that the Calrock Consortium's offer entails a 90% haircut for lenders. We caught up with Ashish Chacharia, the resolution professional for the airline. He told us that Jet Airways can fly again within 6 months under new owners.
We have already reached out to the relevant authorities. I've kept them updated throughout this process, informing them of where we are and what is expected by both the bidders. So both the applicants, that was a similar expectation. So I think now that we have reached this milestone, I think we can engage. I think the successful applicant can engage directly as well. The expectation is that in the next 4 to 6 months, one should be able to see Jet back in the skies again. Getting the airport slots and the traffic rights, that's a very important aspect for Jet Airways to fly again. And these are allotted by the Ministry of Civil Aviation, and it's with rules and regulations around this. So they are going to have to look at the proposals that the business plan for revival, which the new owners have set out, or new proposed owners have set out. And based on that, the expectation is that the slots which were earlier enjoyed by Jet Airways would be returned back.
All right, we'll be tracking that story very, very closely. Moving on, more from the debt resolution space. US-based distressed asset fund Oaktree Capital has offered to buy DHFL's entire book. Sources say Oaktree Capital has made a bid of 28,000 crore rupees in the race, which is also seeing participation of Piramal Capital, Adani Properties and SC Lowy. Ritu Singh has the details. Ritu, what are you picking up?
Of the 22 suitors that had initially shown an interest in DHFL, only 4 came forward to submit bids when the deadline ended on the 17th of October. And we've been given to understand that Oaktree Capital, which is a US-based distressed asset firm, is the only one that has offered to acquire the entire portfolio of DHFL. The other bidders include Piramal Enterprises for the retail portfolio and Adani Properties and SC Lowy for the wholesale portfolio of DHFL. Now, Oaktree Capital, we're given to understand, has made an offer of 28,000 crores to acquire the portfolio, which is now at about 80,000 crores. But for the lenders, this translates to a recovery of almost 30% odd, given that the entire claims against DHFL are over 87,000 crores from the financial creditors alone. But lenders are hopeful they will be able to convince some of these players to revise their offers higher. So that remains to be seen. But lenders will be convening their next meeting on the 26th of October to examine all of these bids and to take it forward from there.
Thank you very much, Ritu, for joining us. On to a CNBC-TV18 exclusive. Sources say that American private equity firm Blackstone is in advanced talks to acquire 100% stake in L&T Mutual Fund after finally resolving the valuation mismatch with parent company L&T Finance. If this deal sails through, Blackstone will become the first foreign investor to buy 100% stake in an Indian mutual fund, opening doors for more such deals. Nisha gets us more details. Nisha, is the deal sealed? What are you picking up?
Sources suggest that L&T as well as Blackstone have agreed on the final deal contours, and that could be Blackstone buying 100% stake in L&T Mutual Fund for around 3,200 crore rupees. But remember that SEBI approval is going to be extremely crucial, to watch out for that. So what this will do for the entire mutual fund industry is that Blackstone could well become 100% owner of a mutual fund Indian asset, the first foreign investor to do that, which could give a fillip to the mutual fund industry and the deal scenario here. And also the valuation dynamics in this particular case will set a benchmark valuation for the other AMC businesses, which could be up for sale.
Thank you very much, Nisha, for joining us. Let's move on. E-commerce giants kick off their annual festive sales. Amazon tells us that close to 91% of their new customers in the first 48 hours came from Tier 2 cities and beyond. Myntra says that Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities have accounted for 50% of their revenues so far.
At Amazon, the 3 things which are important are the number of successful sellers with focus on SMBs, the number of new customers who come online, and the prime shopping. I think on all 3, we are very, very humbled by the response we've seen in the first 48 hours. We put all the inputs in place in terms of delivery, speed, and that's what we've been doing over the last so many months. So I feel quite confident that these trends would continue. And if you look at the new customer trend, especially close to 91% of new customers we acquired during 48 hours, first 48 hours come from towns in Tier 2 and below. So very clearly, more and more people are shopping online. We can see that trend.
In last 2 days of our event, Tier 2, Tier 3 have contributed 50% of orders. But what's more encouraging for us is 80% of those orders came from women customers. So women are actually loving the selection we put together, working closely with the brands, which is not available anywhere else. In the last 6 months, I would say our new customer acquisition growth actually went over the year-over-year growth is almost 100%.
All right, let's move on from e-commerce sales to other consumer durables. AC manufacturer Amber Enterprises says the demand for air conditioners is picking up and business is now at 90% of the pre-COVID levels, also adding that the ban on import of air conditioners with refrigerants will boost local manufacturing.
Business is back on track. I think I would say that we are back to pre-COVID levels. Largely, the inventories which were stuck when the lockdowns were announced have been liquidated. If we compare month-on-month basis, we should be about 85 to 90% of pre-COVID levels.
And good start to Navratri for two-wheeler and passenger vehicle dealers. Industry sources say the delivery numbers have been good so far, with positive sales reports from West Bengal, Delhi NCR, UP and Rajasthan among other states. The auto dealers body is confident of matching 2019 Navratri sales for passenger vehicles and two-wheelers as well. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman says the government has not closed the option of more economic stimulus. Also says the new divestment policy, which is up for the Cabinet's nod, will mark a big shift in government strategy.
Well, I've not closed the option for another stimulus if it comes out to be, because every time we've announced one, it's been after a lot of consideration of inputs which have come from various different sections of the society. Then we sit and work it out within the ministry, with the PMO, and then take a final call. So, yes, I have not closed the option to come up with one more stimulus.
Transformation of India into a digital society. And that digital society incorporates all the future industries so that the next 30 years of India is 100 times like what we had never imagined is what we can achieve. We are working towards is really transformation of energy. And we think again that the world is right and India is in the right mindset to completely, in the next few decades, move away from fossil fuels to completely renewable energy, be Atmanirbhar.
On to another CNBC-TV18 exclusive. This week, tech major Google is set to hold its first meeting with Indian startups over its billing policy. Remember, Google had deferred the rollout of the new policy in India after facing opposition from the Indian startup ecosystem. Mugdha Warrior joins us with more. Mugdha, what are the expectations from these meetings now?
That's right. Ever since Google proposed changes to its Play Store billing policy, they've received massive backlash because Indian startups and developers have said that the 30% commission on in-app purchases of digital goods really is too high and that Google is abusing its dominant position. So Google is now set to hold its first industry-wide meeting and discussion this week with Indian developers and startups. In fact, it will hold a webinar on Wednesday, is what we understand, and this will be followed up with more such discussions. And we understand from sources that the global Google Play team will be present at this webinar to address queries and concerns raised by Indian apps and Indian developers and founders. Google has not responded to our queries, but a few startup founders did confirm to us that they have received this invite. They don't want to be identified as yet. But remember that Google has also been holding one-on-one discussions with several founders over the last few weeks after this backlash. And in fact, they've reached out to companies such as PhonePe, Razorpay. In fact, PhonePe did confirm to us that yes, they held a discussion with Google last week. This is in line with what Google had announced earlier this month when they said that they will hold listening sessions and workshops with Indian developers. And this came at the time when Google announced that they were going to defer the implementation of this policy for Indian app developers by 6 months to April of 2022, while it will come into effect in the rest of the world, in October of 2021. And this, of course, follows backlash. And of course, with, startup founders also approaching CCI and the IT ministry on this, there is some heat on Google. We really need to, understand how this meeting unfolds. We'll get those details for you.
All right. Thanks, Mugdha, for tracking that story. Let's see how Google reaches out to Indian app developers. A quick look at some other headlines. Indian equities end the day in the green as financials lead market higher. The Sensex and the Nifty gain 1% each. The Nifty bank surges 3% with all constituents in the green. A shot in the arm for Adani Enterprises in the Trivandrum airport case. Kerala High Court dismisses the state government's petition versus the privatization of the airport. Buybacks by public sector companies with surplus cash could see a big push to up the divestment receipts this fiscal. Sources say the buyback push can be expected in the coming months. DLF's rental arm raises 2,400 crore rupees from SBI at an interest rate of 7.35%. Money raised via the lease rental discounting route will be used to reduce debt and for new launches.
And this will definitely go in the long run towards making better and better launches and making better and better projects, both in the commercial leasing arm as well as definitely in the other residential and retail spaces also. So therefore, in all, hopefully, we are all working very, very assiduously and intelligently towards reducing debt and meeting market expectations.
Home Minister Amit Shah has hit out at the opposition, alleging that they were providing wrong information to farmers on the new agrarian laws and were using them for political gains. In an exclusive conversation with Network 18's Group Editor-in-Chief Rahul Joshi, Shah insisted that the minimum support price regime will stay and will not be struck down. That's not all. Shah also weighed in on the TRP misrepresentation case and the latest controversy surrounding a Tanishq advertisement. Here's an excerpt of that exclusive conversation.
विपक्ष के द्वारा देश के किसानों को भड़काया जा रहा है। ये क्रूसिबल है क्या? आज देश अपनी उपज, अपना जो उत्पादन है, पूरा मंडियों में बेचता है, आड़तियों के माध्यम से बेचता है, तो उसको एक ही मंडी का रेट उपलब्ध होता है। अब बिल क्या लाया है कि वो मंडी के बाहर भी बेच सकता है। इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि मंडी बंद हो जाएगी। जहर ये फैलाया जा रहा है कि मंडियां बंद हो जाएगी। मंडी बंद होनी ही नहीं है।
जो मीडिया का एक नैरेटिव हो गया है वो काफ़ी श्रिल हो गया। मैं हर बार आपसे एक बार मीडिया पे सवाल पूछता हूँ। मुझे लगता है एक मीडिया का नैरेटिव श्रिल हो गया है। घंटों तक यही कहानी चलती रही है। ज़रूर बहुत दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण घटना थी, मगर जिस तरीके से उसको चलाया गया है, मीडिया ट्रायल भी हो गया है उसका, इतने दिनों से चल रहा है जो नैरेटिव पूरा श्रिल हो रहा है। गवर्नमेंट ने इतना अच्छा काम किया है पिछले इतने महीनों में, पर पूरे दिन जो है एक ही मुद्दे को करीब 10-12 घंटे चलाया गया है। आप ये बदलते हुए नैरेटिव को कैसे देखते हैं और आप क्या कहना चाहेंगे कि हम लोगों को क्या इसमें करना चाहिए?
राहुल, इसका तो जवाब मुझसे अच्छा आप दे सकते हो
जी।
देखिए भाई, मीडिया ट्रायल नहीं होनी चाहिए, मेरा ऐसा बहुत स्पष्ट मानना है। हाँ, कहीं लिपापोती होती हो, घोताही होती है तो जरूर कान पकड़ना चाहिए, अधिकार है मीडिया का और फर्ज भी है, परंतु सिर्फ टीआरपी के लिए बात को बढ़ाना मुझे लगता है उचित नहीं है। और किसी भी घटना में अगर किसी भी प्रकार की लिपापोती होती तो इसको स्पेसिफिक बताना वो मीडिया का धर्म होना चाहिए।
अभी हाल फिलहाल में एक तनिष्क का ऐड आया और जो कि बहुत ट्रोलिंग हुई तनिष्क के ऐड में, तो उसकी वजह से उसको ऐड विड्रॉ करना पड़ा टाटा को। कहीं ये सोशल हार्मनी जो है हमारे देश में, ये कुछ ढीली नहीं पड़ती जा रही है? जो सोशल हार्मनी का जो एक ढांचा था हमारे देश में, आपको लगता है कुछ लोगों की वजह से इस पर क्षति पहुंच रही है?
देखिए, हमारी देश की सोशल हार्मनी को कोई इस प्रकार के छोटे मोटे हमले तोड़ नहीं सकते। इसका ताना बना इतना मजबूत है। ढेर सारे हमले ऐसे हुए, अंग्रेजों ने भी बहुत प्रयास कर देखे, बाद में कांग्रेस ने भी बहुत प्रयास कर देखे, मगर ये टूटने वाली चीज नहीं है। मैं मानता हूं किसी भी प्रकार का ओवर एक्टिविज्म नहीं होना चाहिए।
Time for a break. Coming up, with just 15 days to go for the US elections, Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden continues to maintain a strong lead over President Donald Trump. More on that when we're back. India's trade with China has gone up during the pandemic and the lockdown. Despite tension at the border, exports are up 27% from April to August. Imports are down, but it remains relatively better compared to imports from US and other nations. Rituparna Bhuyan is here with the details.
We analysed desegregated trade data between April and August, and the numbers show a distinct pattern. Let's look at exports first. The data in the April to August period shows that India's exports grew with just one country when it comes to top 10 export destinations, and that country is China. India's exports to China increased by 27.35% between April and August. In fact, even if we combine India's exports with China and Hong Kong, the change is still in the positive territory. We then look at the pre- and post-pandemic trends with respect to share of top 10 export patterns. Here we could see that there is a strong uptick with China as well as China and Hong Kong. China's share in India's exports increased from 5.3% before the pandemic to 9.18% in the post-pandemic period. Let's now look at imports. Here we saw a contraction with all the top 10 sources of imports. But even here, the least contraction in imports in the April to August period was seen with respect to China at 27.6%. Even if we combine Hong Kong and China, we see a similar contraction in imports. Let's look at pre and post-pandemic trends with respect to imports. China's share in India's import basket has increased steeply to 18.11% from 13.75%. For China and Hong Kong, the share in India's import basket increased to 22.44% during the post-pandemic period. In the last slide, let's look at the top 10 items of trade with China. And I want to highlight two items here. First, in the iron and steel segment, which saw exports of $1.86 billion between April and August. This is interesting because the share of this commodity in India's export basket with China increased to nearly 21% in the post-corona period versus just 3% in the pre-corona period. The second item here is computer hardware, which saw imports of $1.85 billion. Here again, the share of the import of this particular item when it comes to China increased to 8.5% between April and August, meaning that perhaps India imported more tablets and laptops during the lockdown period because the demand increased. With that, it's back to you.
China's economy recovers further from the coronavirus and grows 4.9% in the third quarter of 2020. The surge pushes growth for the first 3 quarters of the year to 0.7%. Indian Army apprehends a Chinese soldier in Demchok sector of eastern Ladakh after he strays across the LOC. The soldier has been given medical assistance. He will be returned to Chinese officials after completion of formalities. Australia to join the Malabar naval exercise that's scheduled to be held towards the end of November. The exercise includes navies of India, Japan and the United States. With Australia joining in, all the 4 Quad countries will now come together for a joint naval exercise. A quick look at some of the other COVID headlines. India's active COVID-19 cases fall for the 16th day in a row and slip to 7.7 lakh, the lowest level in almost a month and a half. Deaths increased by 579. The lowest single-day rise in 3 months. Total tests fall to 8.6 lakh. After being shut for almost 7 months, Mumbai's single metro line resumes operations. It is initially operating from 8:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. with number of commuters restricted at 360 per trip. Use of masks and maintaining social distancing is mandatory. Schools in Uttar Pradesh, Punjab and Sikkim reopened today in a staggered manner. In Punjab and Uttar Pradesh, students from class 9 to 12 will be allowed to attend school as long as they have parental consent. Remember, according to the government guidelines, attendance is not mandatory. That's right, just 15 days to go for the US elections. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden continues to lead incumbent Donald Trump in the national polls. It's important to bear in mind, though, that while the polls reflect the national mood, the majority vote does not necessarily mean a victory, as was the case with 2016 election. We've got CNBC's Ali Vitali on all of that is happening in the US election.
Say, college, it's go time.
Joe Biden on offense.
This president cares more about his Park Avenue perspective on the world, the stock market, than he does about you. Well, who got sold short? Y'all got sold short.
Driving voters to the polls.
You too have a sacred duty to vote, and it matters.
In North Carolina, where he holds a narrow lead over the president, who won the state in 2016. This swing state, a must-win. Like Pennsylvania, where Biden is counting on former President Barack Obama to help push him to victory.
If we are fortunate enough that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are elected,
Biden's former boss will campaign for him on Wednesday in Philadelphia, while running mate Senator Kamala Harris heads to Florida Monday ahead of stops in Texas, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. A flurry of new ads set to air during Sunday and Monday Night Football in battleground states.
But you know how much money we raised?
The payoff from Biden's massive fundraising hauls. And while most national polls have Biden ahead,
we shouldn't take anything for granted in these last few weeks.
The campaign in the final push warning about complacency. In a memo obtained by NBC News, Biden's campaign manager urging supporters to campaign like we're trailing. For Emma DeRose, one of the over 1 million early voters in North Carolina, the warning hits a nerve.
You're not letting your friends not vote this election. You are holding your friends accountable, holding your family accountable. We saw what happened in 2016.
All right, we will be tracking the US election very, very closely. Just about 10 to 13 days away now. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to CNBC TV 18 for more.